Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. Today I'm talking with Amanda Gummer, or Dr. Amanda Gummer, and we're going to talk about the power of play. Before we get into that, I always like to get on my guests to do their little piece about where they can get hold of people can get hold of them. So where can we get hold of you, Amanda?
So the website is goodplayguide.com. And you can use the contact form. Obviously, LinkedIn. I'm just Amanda Gummer on LinkedIn. Without the doctor bit. And then there's email is amanda@goodplayguide.com.
So before we get into some of the talk, it'd be really great if you just outlined your journey. So how did you get to where you are? Because a lot of people, see people out there and say, so how can I be like that? So what is it that you needed to do? What do I need to do to be Amanda Gummer?
It's a
apart
tricky
from
one.
Obviously have some quite drastic plastic surgery. I mean,
So yeah, it's a tricky one actually, because obviously I've got the sort of the academic side of things, which enroll in a psychology degree, absolutely fine. Do a PhD, that's all, and a teaching qualification. So that's the kind of the credentials. But actually my journey into play started when I was a kid, because my dad used to sell toys. So I'm not sure how to give somebody that childhood to enable them to then kind of come into this. But I think for me, it's less about sort of the childhood experiences in the background. It's about, for me, it was all about finding my passion. And I think through a real range of experiences, from working in a women's refuge with the kids in there, to teaching in Hong Kong, to foster children, being involved with foster children and all that kind of stuff. So, and everything I did showed me how powerful play could be. And that, on top of the psychology, I think, led me to where I am now. And I think the biggest result, I think, for me has been just being able to be open to opportunities. And when people open doors, you sort of at least poke your nose in and see what's behind it. And I think I'd love to say that I knew exactly what I was going to do when I was a kid, but all through school, like various sort of aspirations. But what I've done is I've stayed fairly true to my values and found something and made the career fit those, rather than have some big long plan of what I wanted to do when I grew up.
I think isn't there some quote by Richard Branson? There's something about, if someone presents you with an opportunity, just take it. You don't even need to work out what it is. It's something that if you feel it's right, just do it.
I think there is a lot of that, and a lot of gut instinct. I think from a business side of things, a little bit more kind of cost benefit analysis and planning would probably have been a good thing in the early days. But yeah, I think generally in your gut, if it fits, if it is aligned with where you want to get to, and it can be a stepping stone on the journey.
So walk us through some of the things that you do, because you look at, one of the things that you're trying to do is make sure that children, and the way that children act and play, taken into account when people design things, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And that can be anything. Started with toys, but it can be anything. So we work with app developers, architects, schools, anybody who's making things or providing a service for children, to help them understand the children's perspective. And we do that through research and listening to children. And that in itself is a really interesting part of the job, because you can get children to pretty much say anything. You give them a new toy and you go, "What do you think?" And they'll go, "Yay," because they want you to give them more new toys. So they say, they think if they like it, they'll get more of them. So being able to get that kind of honest appraisal from kids is really important. And that listening exercise, with grown-ups, you can give them a questionnaire, or you can, get them to fill in a survey or something. And with kids, you've got to just be a little bit more attuned to where they're at with it and what that means developmentally. And you need to listen to children, but you don't necessarily need to take what they say as your blueprint for the next thing. So, because if you ask kids what they want for tea every day, they will probably say chips and chocolate. Now, as the adult, that is not simple. Yeah, and it's the same with, you know, tech time and screen time and balancing all of that kind of stuff. So if you give kids a completely free rein to say what do they want and give them it, you've got to filter it through that sort of child development knowledge of what's right and appropriate, and what does that mean for them. So maybe it means that they, you know, they would like to have a bit more choice over what they eat, or maybe a bit more you know, free time to do what they want to do, or downtime or stuff. But interpreting how children respond to questions is one of my favorite bits. Right. So we do that and help people understand the children's perspective, not just their perspective, but also their needs. And that goes, we're doing some really lovely work at the moment on inclusion and diversity, making sure that people working for children don't just go for the mass market, you know, one size fits all option, but try and make sure that their products and services are as inclusive and accessible as possible. So that's, I'm enjoying that.
Because they need to, in effect, they need to reflect society, don't they?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, understanding cultural differences as well as financial barriers, and, you know, as well as mobility, or, you know, physical and emotional and cognitive challenges, you know, all of that needs to come into the mix. But it's making those kind of, having that awareness to put that in at the right stages of development. I think that's really important.
I think one of your friends, Marjorie, is saying hi to you.
Marjorie is an amazing toy developer from Uruguay, who has these fabulous dolls called We Are Little Rebels, who are heroines of like soft toys representing people like Malala and Amelia Earhart and stuff. So yeah, hi Marjorie.
And I mean, you talked about, you know, the fact that people, if they're manufacturing cars, you know, they need to understand that children probably are going to be in the back of the car.
Yeah.
And they need to be building the car, because you know, I was always told to look out the window, but it's not. It's a little bit more sophisticated now, isn't it?
It is, and I think that's the next frontier for us. Really, it's taking those industries that aren't necessarily aimed at children, you know, per se, like toys and games. Obviously, you've got kids in mind, but there are, you know, holidays, cars, travel, transport, you know, luggage even. You know, Trunky have done a good job of kidifying the, you know, the kids' luggage,
which was famously turned down by Dragon's Den or Shark Tank. It's Dragon's Den is the UK equivalent of Shark Tank, if you look at it.
I think that was the best thing that ever happened to those guys.
Yes.
But yeah, so the those industries where children are involved, but they're often an afterthought. And for me, development, you know, building the built environment is something that we're making some strides in. Making, you know, when people are looking at developing a new block of flats or a new community space, making sure that kids' views and needs are taken into account. And I had a lovely conversation with a guy who was saying, who was in this space, and said, well, we don't really talk to them because they don't vote. And it's all very political and it's all about, you know. And I was like, well, they're going to at some point. And actually, you know, if you get it right, you will reduce antisocial behaviour, you'll reduce vandalism, you'll have a better community, which is going to put everybody in a much better frame of mind, and it's a virtuous circle. So I think the penny dropped, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe we should start listening to the kids when we're designing their homes.
Yeah, because the Trunky story is interesting, because I remember that being presented, which is that a child's going on holiday. So they're going out of their comfort zone, which is home. They're probably going into an environment. An airport is an adult thing.
Yeah,
it's designed for adults.
Absolutely.
And they're going to go through a journey, which there's going to be, you know, people in uniform, scary people in uniform at security and stuff. So how can we make that more pleasant for them? So what we're doing is that we're going to give them a suitcase that they can pack themselves. So they're going to take ownership of that. And then they're going to be able to sit on it and be pulled through the airport, which kind of makes it fun.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. And it is. I mean, you see. I mean, I've seen them at the airport where the kids love this thing because they're being dragged along, and in a way, the fact that they're being dragged along in an adult environment actually makes it even more fun.
Yeah.
And the fact that the Dragon's Den or the Shark Tank people didn't understand that and want to invest is is just, it's just an example of how society goes, well, it has to be adult. Once you go to the airport, you need to be grown up, right?
Yeah. And the thing with what they've done really well is by making that more playful, by making that the aeroplane or the airport journey experience more playful, they've reduced stress, they've reduced lost kids, they've reduced, all of that stuff. There's some real knock-on benefits. And I think, hence my mission to make the world more playful, because I think the benefits are huge across, across society.
Yes. And I'm sure there's lots of examples of that. And in a way, I mean, you've got a mission for the rest of your life, because there must be lots of things where you must be able to sit there and go, oh my God, look, if we did this, then.
Yeah, absolutely. I love things when I see things like the play groups in the old people's homes and those interactions, because play isn't just about the kids. It is about, it's a lifelong attitude. And I think it's a really healthy outlook to have. And I love I can't remember who it is that the quote came from, but it's you don't stop playing because you grow old, you grow old because you stop playing. It's that kind of approach. I think that's George Bernard Shaw, maybe, I think.
GBS. So there's been a lot of things have happened, haven't they, in the last 2 years because of lockdowns and homeschooling, and what's been the impact of that?
I think we're going to be studying this for an awfully long time. So I think you've got teachers that I'm talking to who have got children starting school significantly, and we're talking months behind where previous cohorts have entered school in terms of social skills, independence, personal management. And there was and the example that stuck with me was this teacher saying, we've got this 4-year-old, I think it was, coming into school, still expecting to be fed, because you feed your 2-year-old because you need them, you sort of spoon feed them. But there's been nothing happened in their life that's led the parents to go, oh, maybe they need to start feeding themselves now. So they've just kept spoon feeding the child.
Because I came out of nappies very, very quickly.
Right.
And my parents they said to me, the reason why you did that was because we said, look at your brother, he doesn't wear nappies, you need to be like that. And you go, oh, right, okay. Yeah. And so I guess there's a certain amount of peer pressure and seeing what other people are doing.
Absolutely. Children learn from each other. So, if they can see and obviously the child who started school needing to be spoon fed was soon taught how to use cutlery properly and do it themselves, because there's no developmental reason why they couldn't. It's just that lockdown period has just deprived young children of opportunities to socialize and learn from each other and learn from people other than their immediate family. And you learn such a lot from kids playing together. So that kind of stuff has just been.
I worked in a play group in some summer holidays when I was student, and there was this one kid who his parents, all they did was that they spent, the easiest thing to describe is they spent all their time watching the TV, and he was basically in the back room and he didn't understand how to play. So normally you take a kid to the sandpit and you go, hey, there's a sandpit, and they go, start putting sand in the bucket and then turning it over and then knocking everybody else's stuff over. But he just stood at the sandpit and went and you had to show him how to do it, and then you had to take him to the water and actually show him, like, this is what a boat does. It was
heartbreaking.
Heartbreaking is the thing. It's like, how do you not know how to play it? It's 3 to 5, so that was the age group.
Yeah, no, it is really sad. There's some really horrible studies on kids who've been, stuck in rooms in Romanian orphanages or something, years ago, and the how it shows how social we are and how much we learn from each other, because those children had so little skill. Some of them didn't even walk because they hadn't had enough exposure to people standing up and walking. They sort of got around by bum shuffling or whatever. And it was just, those sort of things are just horrible to see, but it does really emphasize how important that social interaction is. And we learn through watching other people.
So your good toy guide, talk us through that at a high level without selling it,
Okay, sure. So it's goodplayguide.com, and that's the home of the Good Toy Guide, Good App Guide, Good Learning Guide. We're launching the Good Baby Guide imminently, and Good Activities Guide soon to follow. So there's all these different guides which have reviews of products and services, so that parents have got somewhere to go to get that independent, trusted review. it's not, it's all done by children, parents and experts. So there's no, you can't buy the fake reviews like you can on some of the e-commerce sites and stuff. And it's got a load of articles and information and advice for parents and educators to help support that playful approach to family life.
And one of the things that led me to you on LinkedIn was the fact that you're using ASMR.
So we have, yes. So
walk me through that. So ASMR is, what's that stand for?
Autonomic sensory motor response.
Yes. Which is like tapping on a microphone, and
it's that pleasure. It's the pleasure tingles. It's a
strange thing. If you're watching it, Google it, because you'll find that there's YouTubers who have got like millions of followers who just basically put YouTube up, and they're sort of like getting a hairbrush or something and just going like this. It's a really strange thing, but you're using it actually from a commercial perspective in toys, aren't you?
So yeah, not me personally, but yes, some of the people who've got toys in the guide. So we've been reviewing some toys. So Sensory FX from Just Play is the one that I think was the article I was looking at when you found me. So I think that was they're sensory stimuli, and they create that ASMR effect, if you like. And it's fascinating. It's really interesting for children with special needs. Kids with autism seem to be particularly drawn to these kind of toys, and they seem to be effective in reducing stress and anxiety. So I think there's a lot of work to be done on that response, but also on the toys and the products and the experiences that create an ASMR.
And I guess that's really expanding, because when I was a kid, you had Corky toys, Tonka toys, and Action Men, and that was kind of it. And for boys, and that was kind of it. Whereas now you're getting this far wider ability of, and actually you're using science and psychology to actually make the ability to create toys and a wider band of that.
Yeah, and I think the more we know about children's development, the more we understand how their brains work, how their emotional development sort of matures, how their social skills, come along, the more we can support them. And that's without hothousing. It's not a kind of sit down, you will learn to write. It's a playful approach to making sure that children develop the skills that they need to develop in order to be, successful, contributing, independent, healthy, happy members of the community.
Yeah, and I think that's it's key, isn't it? The fact that the play is also giving us skills.
Yeah.
And it's not just a skill of will you share your toys, but also that you're learning something at the same time, as you're using the toy.
Yeah, absolutely. You're learning about yourself. You're learning about how the world works. You're learning about how to relate to other people. You're learning how to problem solve. Play is incredibly powerful in terms of children's development. And I think my biggest plea is for parents and educators to prioritize it and stop treating it as a sort of as the fun reward bit, or the frivolous waste of time when they're not doing the homework bit. It's actually, the benefits of play are huge. And I think if we all played a bit more, I think the world would be a lot better place.
Mm. And I should say that previously when we spoke, you saw toys as and for in pregnancy, birth, and what you call toddlers. That's kind of, so there's quite a big expanse of time in years, months and years that and different types of, obviously the pregnancy market is different from the toddlers market.
Yeah, so from a commercial point of view, we did some work about 3 or 4 years ago where we segmented what's always been considered the preschool market into sort of the very small first steppers, I think they were called, the 6 month to 2, and then the 2 to 5, because that's a very different, developmentally very different. You don't want this to be making the same toys, the same TV programs won't necessarily appeal. So you need to understand the developmental milestones and the progress that children go through at each point in order to best serve them with products and services that they need to thrive.
Amanda, thank you so much for coming on today. It's a fascinating subject. I knew nothing about it when I contacted you, and I actually feel that I know something about it now. And it's I look at the world differently because we must be able to turn play into and also impact children at the same time. It's a fascinating subject.
Yeah, and I think it's a virtuous circle. So the more we do it, the more we feel confident doing it, the more children do it naturally, and it just becomes a virtuous circle. And I think one that would save the economy a huge amount of money if we get it right, because mental health and education and youth justice and all of that kind of stuff, it would all benefit from us having more playful families.
So Amanda, remind people where they can get hold of you.
Sure. So goodplayguide.com is the website. All feedback very welcome. On Insta and Facebook and all of that, as well as LinkedIn is me. And then email is amanda@goodplayguide.com.
Thank you so much for coming on today. It's as I said, it's a fascinating subject, and I hope people have learned something about it, because I think we all need to learn about it. So
thank you, and thank you for having me. I've enjoyed the chat.
You're welcome. Thanks, Amanda, and thanks for people, especially for Marjorie, for your engagement.